My name is Lawrence, and I walk with a limp. On the second day of 2010, I was accidentally shot by a family member at close range with a shotgun while duck hunting. On that morning, between pain, blood loss, and our remote location, I thought it was my last day. I called my mother to tell her I loved her and that I wasn't going to make it. Thankfully, as you can see, I was wrong. Many took heroic action that morning and my life was saved, but my leg was lost. Unyielding physical pain filled the first months and is still present, though less. Mental and spiritual anguish followed. I was hurt, angry, and deeply sad. I wouldn't wish this pain and suffering on my worst enemy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because of what it has done in me. I can say now with confidence that which Paul, an early follower of Jesus, wrote to the church at Corinth. Praise be to God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. Before my accident, I'd used worldly comforts to mask pain, sorrow, discomfort. Afterwards, these were nowhere close to sufficient. The pain could not be negotiated with or hidden. I tried. I tried to grit my teeth and walk it off, but kept falling flat on my face, literally, down a short flight of stairs onto pavement. Then when I tried to sit in a chair to recover from the fall, I missed the chair and again fell flat on my face. That was the lowest moment. I had no more strength within me. My mother came over when she heard this fall, and we sat on the floor and she cried with me. She also prayed with me. I told God that I was spent. I couldn't do it on my own strength. If he wanted me to rise and walk, it was going to have to be on his strength, not mine. I had serious doubts whether he was even paying attention, whether he even cared, whether he could do it. I even had doubts whether he existed at all. My prayers, if you could call them that, were filled with shouts and curses at the sky. It was the first time I had ever been absolutely honest with God and told him what I thought of his broken creation. But he understands how broken it is. It was his son who went to the cross. And so I started to be captivated by the cross. Who was this God who became man and went to the cross voluntarily? Like me, he knew the anguish of feeling life slowly pouring out into puddles of blood on the ground. He knew the feeling of being forsaken. He knew the pain. But he went through it anyway because he knew the redemptive power of it. I wanted my pain to be redeemed. I prayed that it could be used, and some days I think that this prayer has been answered, some days I doubt. But either way, I was left with a limp. This physical outward manifestation of my suffering has somehow allowed me to enter into others' suffering. And from this, I have observed much about the nature of suffering. There's no currency by which suffering can be compared or counted. Mine does not compare to yours. I've been told that mine is worse, and I've been told that mine isn't so bad. but there's no worse or better, except on one point. I found there's a palpable difference in the suffering that comes from obedience to God, the suffering we bring on ourselves from disobedience, and the suffering that comes as the ongoing, unavoidable nature of living in this broken world where bad things happen. I experience different degrees of each of these often, and I've learned that the difference is in the effect each has on me and has on those in whose suffering I've entered. The difference is a matter of the heart in a simple but profound way. The difference seems to hinge on gratitude. When I'm grateful for all that has been put in my path, especially the suffering, I can receive his comfort and experience deep joy. Only then can I be present and compassionate with someone in their suffering and perhaps open a little crack for the redeeming love of Jesus to come in. However, we don't do this. As Kate said, we dance around the friend's divorce. We avoid the discussion of alcoholism. We are silent about the suicide. We're scared to say the wrong thing and never show up. Or if it's our own suffering, we tell no one. In a conversation with a woman who I did not know, I shared my story when she asked why I limped. She then shared hers. She told me about when she was 14, when almost half of her life had been suffering. She'd been the innocent victim of violent sexual abuse at the hands of her stepfather and her brother. It was pain like I'd never heard before, and it was apparent that the wounds were still open some 40 years later. She then said she had never said any of this aloud before. She had never told anyone. I have no idea why she told me. I don't understand why I see great cultural shame placed on suffering. There's great fear. We march through life with the inability to name the brokenness. The silence becomes a second betrayal beyond the original wound. But we're scared, we're ashamed. We're supposed to be winners, yet we feel anything but. However, naming it and sharing it are not the same as being a powerless victim. There's power in redemption and weakness and vulnerability. Suffering is often not my fault, but it is always my responsibility. I'm morally responsible for my own suffering and the suffering of those who the Lord puts in my path, but I don't have to fix it. I'm responsible for lovingly addressing it. I found that silent presence, a hug, sharing tears, not being scared to stand with someone as they rage against God and the brokenness of his creation, being able to withhold judgment. When I just sit with another in their pain, miraculous healing and redemption is possible. I've seen it. However, sometimes the healing never comes, or I just don't see it. This is the fear. This is when I would rather run. The pain is too great and my faith is too small. But I try to hold on to my faith that Jesus' healing and redemption is sufficient. But again, I forget this, and sometimes I doubt it's true. I try again what's already proved to fail. I grit my teeth, walk it off. But my own pain and brokenness reminds me to be grateful. Grateful for what suffering has taught me. Grateful for the miracles it has opened my eyes to see. Grateful for the Lord's comfort and immense joy in my life. And grateful that I walk with a limp. Thank you.